the wrestling business in itself is kind of, it's a lot of nepotism, and it's also very competitive.
When you go back and you look
Right.
at what happened with Terry Gordy and that fight, what did happen? Because they just, they did a doc about it not that long ago on Terry, but what happened?
I'd like to see the doc. I mean, I was there, Clark was there. I don't know the particulars really. I know that I'll tell you a little story that just one of the things that was part of my experience. So, Steve and Doc are up in the, first class or business class, whatever it was. And Clark and I, it's our first tour. We're green. We're just coming over. Dory booked us, and we're in coach. But we're sitting kind of towards the front of coach, and the plane wasn't necessarily full, and we could see, up to where those guys were. And I don't know who else was on there. There's a couple other kind of big stars that were up there too. Maybe Ted DiBiase. Um, I don't know who was all Butcher, maybe Abdullah Butcher was. I don't know, but I remember, we're sitting on the plane and we haven't left the airport yet. I think we're in L.A. And all of a sudden, there's all this commotion and yelling and screaming going on in the aisle, and I'm like, Clark, well, like what's happening? We're kind of like scared, and I hear Terry and Doc, they're cutting like a pro wrestling promo on some passengers in the plane because they were in their seats, right? And I mean, and they're like, rough. They're doing their wrestling stuff, right? And I'm thinking to myself and Clark, we're like, oh my God, this is them. Like, this is who they are. Like, when you see them in the ring and they're like acting like that, this might really be their personality. Like, this is them. We're sitting there trying to be not, mind our business and whatever, and man, I think what had happened was they'd overbooked it or something, and someone was in their seats. Of course, they straightened it out and they got seated. But I remember, it was like a big chaos right in the very beginning. And then, I don't know, I guess, they were taking some sleeping pills in order to go to sleep or whatever it was. I mean, I really can't speak on it because I have no idea. But, when we got to Narita airport, they had to wheel Terry off, in like a wheelchair. And then, and I think they took him right to the hospital. And then, we got on the bus and they're all saying, okay, well, he's in the hospital, and like, they said, we're still going to do the tour, everything's going to go like it is, and we'll figure it out or whatever. And we did the whole thing. And he never rejoined the group. I think he was in the hospital in a coma. And then I think they resuscitated him a few times. And I think they flew his wife over maybe. And I mean, you hear stuff. I'm not sure I got the details right. I mean, I was there for what happened, but, we're on the bus and, it's not like something everybody's, talking about, right? Because you got to work and, you're busy with the tour. And I didn't know him, I didn't know him. I, met him in the airport, and Joel Deaton. And I remember Joel Deaton. Joel Deaton was one of the guys that was there. I met him in the airport, but, I mean, I didn't hardly know anybody. But it was sad. I think it was tough. It was a tough, thing that happened, and a bad break.
Scary and sad. He was kind of never the same again, really, after just crazy.
Yeah, I think he, maybe he was, when if you're without oxygen for a certain amount of time, right? Then you might have not be quite as sharp, when you come back. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what happened to that extent, how when he was resuscitated or how many times or what happened. I wasn't there. And I don't know, but yeah, it's a very, very unfortunate because I mean, I was a huge fan, of those guys, just watching some of the tapes